I told my husband's mom she's not allowed at the birth, and he agreed. I am 33 weeks pregnant. I have spent the last 8 months growing a human being and managing my mother-in-law Linda at the same time, and I want to be honest that the second task has sometimes felt like the more demanding of the two. Linda is the kind of woman who communicates love through control. She does not ask, she announces. She does not suggest, she decides, and then informs you of what has already been decided. When we told her we were pregnant, she immediately began referring to my due date as our due date in every single conversation, without seeming to notice or care about the distinction. I let it go because I was 8 weeks along and exhausted and barely keeping food down, and I did not have the energy to unpack what it meant. I should have said something much earlier than I did. That is the only part of this I regret. Over the following months, Linda inserted herself into our birth plan in careful and incremental stages. First, she announced she would come and stay the week of the due date to help around the house. Then it became, of course, I will be at the hospital, delivered as a statement of fact to Dan, rather than a question directed at me. Then, 3 weeks ago, she told Dan while I was sitting right there in the room with them that she had already spoken to her sister about coming too, both of them in the delivery room together, because the more support the better, and she had been through it herself, and she knew exactly what was needed and what helped. I went quiet in a way that Dan recognized immediately, and Linda did not notice at all. That night after she had gone home, I told Dan clearly and without any ambiguity that Linda and her sister were not going to be in that delivery room. He said he knew. He said he had been trying to find the right moment to talk to his mom about it, and he was sorry he had not done it sooner, and he was especially sorry that I had had to sit through that conversation in silence. I told him the right moment had probably been somewhere around month 5, and I needed him to call her tomorrow morning and be completely clear about it. He called her that morning. He was very clear. Linda called me the afternoon after that call. She said she was deeply hurt and she did not understand why she was being excluded from such an important family moment. I told her she was not being excluded from anything. She was being asked not to be present during a medical procedure in which I would be the most physically vulnerable I had ever been in my life, and I was under absolutely no obligation to share that with anyone I had not personally and deliberately chosen to have in that room with me. She said she was family. I told her family did not grant automatic access to my body or my labor, and those were two very different things. She went quiet and then said she felt I was being very unkind to her after everything she had done and tried to do. I told her she had been making assumptions about my birth plan for 8 months without once asking me what I actually wanted, and I needed her to sit with that for a moment. She told Dan I had been cold and difficult on the phone. Dan told her he supported my decision completely and the conversation was not open for further discussion. He came home and told me what he had said to her. I had not known he was going to hold that line so firmly. I cried when he told me, not because I was upset, but because I had not been fully certain he would, and discovering that he had held it meant more to me than I have any words to describe properly. Linda has been cooler with me since that week. She will be there after the birth. She will hold this baby and love this baby, and she will be the grandmother of this child, and I genuinely want that for her and for my child both. But she is not going to be in that room. That decision is made and it belongs to me. Subscribe for more stories. What was the most insane rumor that went around your school? I still remember the day Tessa transferred to our school and instantly made it her mission to be the center of attention. She'd annoy almost everyone doing it, but unfortunately, some people fell for her lies. She would come to school with a new cast basically every month. Wrist, ankle, arm, it didn't matter. If it could be wrapped, she'd show up with it wrapped, and she'd cry over literally everything. Whenever someone did something she didn't like, she'd instantly resort to tears. Somehow people believed them, but that was just who she was. Eventually we had a school-wide assembly, and as we were all sitting in the gym, the whole school packed onto those wooden bleachers. I wasn't really paying attention, but then something weird happened. The gym doors opened, and this woman walked in. At first I didn't recognize her, but then I realized it was Tessa's mom. She walked straight across the gym floor, not looking at any of us, just heading toward our director. Suddenly everyone was paying attention to Tessa and her mom, instead of the speech we were getting. Tessa's mom reached our director and leaned in close, whispering something to him. His face changed. He nodded slowly, then picked up the microphone. The gym went quiet. He called Tessa and asked her to come down, and literally everyone was staring at her. When she finally got to the floor, she walked over to her mom. Her mom just looked at her and whispered something to Tessa, and for a second, she just stood there frozen. Then out of nowhere, she screams, "Oh my God, why?" Everyone was stunned, but Tessa started wailing. Why? Why? No, you have to be lying. She tried to run out of the gym, but halfway there, she collapsed, just dropped to the ground and kept crying, curled up on the gym floor while the entire school watched in complete silence. Her mom rushed over and basically had to drag her outside. The doors closed behind them, and nobody said a word. We all just sat there. Nobody knew what happened, but we knew it had to have been something horrible, something real. After the assembly, everyone was talking about it. What could have possibly made her react like that? Some of her friends texted her trying to find out, but she wouldn't give them a straight answer. All she would say was, why couldn't it have been me? People started speculating, and by the end of the day, a rumor spread through the whole school. Someone said her dad and her little sister got into a car accident, a bad one, and that neither of them survived. It made sense. The way she screamed, the way she collapsed. What else could it have been? The school took it seriously too. The next day they had us all say a prayer for her during announcements. Teachers passed around a card for everyone to sign with condolences. But then a few days later, everyone changed. All of a sudden, Tessa was back at school, and nobody felt bad for her anymore. All of the teachers who were praying for her suddenly just looked right by her, and that's when I found out what really happened. Apparently, Tessa's mom showed up that day to tell Tessa she had to walk home because her sister was in the hospital, because her little sister had broken her pinky. Tessa changed schools a week later.
I blocked my entire family after my grandma's birthday party. My grandma turned 82 in March. She asked for one thing for her birthday. She asked for all of her grandchildren to be there. There are 7 of us, and we are spread out across different parts of the country, and getting everyone into the same room at the same time is genuinely difficult to arrange. She knew that. She asked anyway. I drove 4 hours to be there without hesitation. 2 of my cousins flew in from abroad. We all showed up because she is 82 and she asked us to, and that was a good enough reason. The party was at my Aunt Karen's house. About 30 people, a buffet, paper plates, exactly the kind of relaxed gathering my grandma loves because it lets her move between people and talk to everyone separately. She was in very good form when when I arrived. She held on to me when she hugged me and said she was genuinely so glad I had come such a long way to be there. About an hour in, my Uncle Dave stood up and gave a speech. The speech was fine and warm enough in parts. The problem was that halfway through it, Dave started talking about my grandma's will. Not obliquely, not as some vague reference to legacy or memory. He said he hoped everyone in that room would remember this birthday when the time came for decisions to be made about the estate, and that loyalty and presents were things my grandma had always deeply valued. He looked slowly around the room when he said it, in a way that was clearly designed to land on the cousins who had not been able to come that day. 2 of my cousins had not been there. One was 8 months pregnant, and her doctor had told her not to travel long distances. One was sitting in a hospital room with her husband, who had had emergency surgery just 3 days before. They had both sent cards and long video messages, and my grandma had watched them on my cousin Jess's phone and cried with happiness at each one. My grandma's face when Dave said it, that is what I keep coming back to. She had been smiling the whole entire day, and then she was not smiling, and she looked down at the floor for a brief moment before she recovered herself. Nobody else seemed to notice or react. I noticed. When the speech was over, I went to Dave and told him quietly what I had just seen on my grandma's face, and asked him to think carefully about whether that had been the right thing to say at her 82nd birthday party. He said he had only been making an honest observation. I told him the observation had been deliberately designed to exclude people who were not there for reasons completely beyond their control, and that it had visibly upset my grandma at her own celebration. He said I was reading too much into everything. I told him I had watched her face. 2 of my other uncles came over. They said I was causing a scene. I told them I had said one thing quietly to one person and asked him to reflect on it. They said Dave had every right to say what he thought. I said so did I. One of them told me I had always been far too sensitive about things. I told him being able to read my grandma's face at her own birthday party was not a character flaw. I said goodbye to my grandma privately. I told her the party was wonderful, and I was so glad I had come and I would call her during the week. She held both of my hands for a moment and said I was a good boy. I told her she was a magnificent woman, and I meant it completely. I blocked Dave, both of those uncles, and 3 cousins who messaged me that evening saying I had been out of line. I blocked my Aunt Karen because she called to say I had ruined the party by confronting Dave. I did not ruin the party. The speech ruined the party. I just noticed. My grandma called me 4 days later. She said she had heard there had been some trouble. I said there had been a little. She said good, just like that. Good. Then she changed the subject and told me about her geraniums. Subscribe for more stories.
My daughter has been terrified of the mailman for years. Yesterday, he handed me a letter and said, "She's the only one who can see what I really look like." Smart kid. He smiled. He had too many teeth. Olivia is 9 now. Since she was 4, she'd hide whenever the mail truck pulled up. She'd run to her room and close the door until he was gone. We asked her why 100 times. "He's wrong," she'd say. "His face is wrong." We assumed it was a phase. Kids get scared of random things. Clowns, mascots, bearded men. We figured she'd grow out of it. She never did. Yesterday, I was on the porch when he walked up. Gerald, according to his name tag, mid-50s, normal looking, friendly smile. But when he smiled, I noticed what I'd never noticed before. His teeth were slightly off, too uniform, too white, too many crowded together in a way that didn't look natural. He caught me staring. "She's the only one who can see what I really look like." Smart kid. Then he walked away before I could respond. That night I couldn't sleep. I searched his name online and found nothing unusual. Just a mailman who'd worked our route for 6 years. But his words haunted me. What did he really look like? What did my daughter see? The next morning I waited for him. When the truck pulled up, I walked out to meet him. "What did you mean yesterday about my daughter seeing what you really look like?" He sighed and sat down on our porch steps. He looked tired. "You ever notice kids see things adults don't? They haven't learned to look away from uncomfortable things yet." He pointed at his face. "This isn't my real face. Most of it anyway." He pulled at his cheek slightly. The skin moved wrong. Prosthetic. 12 years ago, I was a firefighter. House fire. The ceiling collapsed on me. 3rd-degree burns on 60% of my body. Most of my face melted off. He said it so matter-of-factly, like describing the weather. "The prosthetics are good, expensive. Took years of surgeries and fittings. Most adults see a normal face because they want to see a normal face. They don't look close enough to notice the seams, the texture differences, the way my smile doesn't move quite right." He gestured toward my house. "Kids don't have that filter yet. Your daughter took one look at me and knew something was off. She couldn't articulate it, but she saw the mask. She saw that my face doesn't match what's underneath." I sat down beside him. "She's been scared of you for 5 years. Not scared of me, scared of what she sees. There's a difference. Kids don't have words for, 'That man's face is artificial and it's unsettling.' They just say wrong and hide." He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. A man with no face, red and white scar tissue where features should be. One eye socket empty, the other eye staring out from a landscape of melted skin. That's what I really look like. That's what she somehow knows is under here. Smart kid indeed. I stared at the photo for a long time. "Why do you keep this job? Walking up to houses, having kids run away from you?" "Because I spent 4 years after the accident hiding in my house, terrified of how people would react. My wife left. My friends disappeared. I was becoming a ghost." He put the phone away. "This job forces me outside, forces me to interact. Most people don't notice anything. They just see Gerald the mailman. That's enough for me. Feeling normal, even if it's a disguise." That night I talked to Olivia. I showed her Gerald's photo, explained what had happened to him, explained why his face looked wrong to her. She studied the picture for a long time. He got hurt saving people? Yes, he was very brave. But now people are scared of him? Some people. People who can see what you see. She was quiet for a moment. That's sad. He's not scary. He's just hurt. The next day when the mail truck came, Olivia didn't hide. She walked outside and stood beside me on the porch. Gerald's eyes went wide when he saw her. She'd never willingly been in his presence before. "Hi," she said. "I'm sorry I used to hide. I didn't understand before." Gerald's prosthetic face couldn't show much emotion, but his real eye, the one that survived the fire, filled with tears. "You don't have to apologize, sweetheart." "Does it hurt? Your real face?" "Not anymore. Not for a long time." She nodded seriously. "Good. I made you a card for being brave." She handed him a folded piece of construction paper. He opened it with shaking hands. A crayon drawing of a firefighter with a big smile. Underneath she'd written, "Thank you for saving people." Gerald sat down on our steps and cried. Not the prosthetic face, the man underneath, the one my daughter had seen all along. He still delivers our mail. Olivia waves at him every day now. Sometimes she brings him lemonade. She doesn't see a monster anymore. She sees a hero whose face shows what he sacrificed. Some kids see things adults miss. My daughter saw past the mask to the wounded man beneath it, and then she decided to stop being afraid and start being kind.